Hey guys, Andrew here with another quick clip, and in this week's clip we're going to talk again about color mixing. This is going to be part 2 and a continuation from last week. So if you haven't caught part 1 yet, you can see that right here. Now before we get into this, I'd like to just dedicate this clip to my friend Antonio Davis, who's an extraordinary artist. I put a link to his YouTube channel in the description below. Make sure you check out his work. It is extraordinary. I won't say too much about it, but let me tell you, he is an absolute inspiration. Wait till you see how he makes his paintings. Now, Antonio, thanks so much for posting your comment in the YouTube comment section and requesting this week's quick clip. Let's get into it. Now for this exercise, I've taken some color swatches from the hardware store. These are used to find the right color for your house paint, but they make a great exercise in trying to match these at random to try and manipulate the colors on our palette as a way of learning what color does. So I've chosen 3 of these, which are my secondaries, being orange, green, and purple. Now what do we have here? We've got High Vis Bizzo, Snaggletooth Green, and Merple Serple Purple. It doesn't matter which color we use, they call them all sorts of crazy names. I'm just going to choose those at random and focus on mixing that color exactly. So let's have a look at how to do that. Now, when mixing and matching a color, there's 2 approaches that we can take. We can start off with a tonal approach and try and mix the appropriate tone and add color to that tone, or we can start with the base color, in which case we identify what the color is, start with whatever matches that as close as possible, and then manipulate it from there. Let's have a look at these 2 different approaches. When approaching this from a tonal point of view, I'm going to start thinking about creating a neutral tonal base. Now I've got 3 great colors here on the palette that will help me achieve that: burnt umber, ultramarine blue, and titanium white. Now the ultramarine blue and the burnt umber go together to make a neutral near black color. Then I can lift this tone with white. However, because I'm trying to mix orange, I'm going to eliminate the ultramarine blue here from the outset. I feel that this will push it too far in a different color direction, so I'm just going for straight umber and white. I manipulate the amount of white until I've lifted the tone enough so I cannot differentiate in a tonal aspect between the card and the paint that I've just mixed. When we squint, we reduce everything to tone, and it becomes easier to see where our mix needs to go. Now that I have my tonal base, I'm going to start to introduce color. I'm going for cadmium yellow deep and pyrrole red. This should make a nice hot orange, and we'll see how close we can match this color. I thought I was pretty close, but as I make a spot and apply it to the card, I can see I'm way off. I need to manipulate this a little bit more and maybe add just a touch more saturation. It's also far too dark, so I add a little bit more titanium white. But as I do this and manipulate it back and forth, I start to desaturate, so then I need to go back and add even more color. I make some more spots, but I can see that the color is getting further and further away from me, and I might be tripping up over the initial tonal base that I mixed. Despite the fact it looks close on the palette, as soon as I apply it to the card, I am way off. I'm thinking about abandoning this approach altogether, and I'm going to try approaching it from a different angle. The tonal approach just doesn't seem to work, and this means that every time I try and mix and match that tone, I end up desaturating the mix so much that it's difficult to overcome. So I'm going to try and do this from a color point of view and go straight for my most saturated notes first. I've identified that pyrrole red and cadmium yellow deep might form a really great base for this color. Then if I add just a touch of white to it, I can lift the tone and also desaturate at the same time. There's no umber in this mix at all, and already I'm getting so much closer. I've nearly matched the card exactly, so I can't tell the difference between the paint I've mixed and the card. I think this one's a winner. As with most of these house paint matching cards, they seem to step it up in terms of tone. So every time they change the color on the card, they have a base color and then they just add white to it, lifting the tone gradually. That's exactly what I'm doing with my palette here, is I'm just adding a bit more titanium white, and as I do this, it matches the mid-tone exactly. With the brightest tone, a little bit more variation and mixing is needed, just to make sure I'm matching the right heat and intensity of this color. Every time I add white, it desaturates and does something different to the tone, but as I gradually mix it back and forth, I'm able to get pretty close to this. As we can see here, the far better approach is going straight for the color. It's far better to come at this from the saturated angle and then work and manipulate the color from there. So I would recommend always going with identifying your base color first and then seeing where this needs to go in terms of hot or cold or in terms of what type of color it is. It's really easy to manipulate once we have a base color. Now let's try a different color altogether. We've talked about orange, how about another secondary, purple? Now this purple is nice and desaturated. I'm going to go straight for a titanium white, ultramarine blue, burnt umber, and quinacridone magenta. I'm matching the tone a little bit here, but I'm gradually going to increase that saturation with ultramarine blue and that quinacridone magenta, and then see where the heat and the intensity needs to go. So we've identified the base color, we're using ultramarine blue and quinacridone magenta, and then adjusting the tone from there with a bit of titanium white and then with desaturating burnt umber. As I lay the spots on the card, I get closer and closer and nearly match it exactly. There's a little bit of variation when we take into account the glare on the card, but I feel this is pretty close. Let's get on with the mid-tone. The same goes as we just saw with the orange. Here I'm just adding a little bit of titanium white to my previous mix, in a similar fashion to what the paint company would do when they give us this card. But it does desaturate, so I need to introduce a little bit more magenta and ultramarine blue, and then bang on, we get that color matched. Finally, with a little bit of titanium white, we're able to mix the brightest tone. There's plenty of extra color left over on my brush, and this matches nearly exactly. There's far less mixing here to match this color once we've already identified that base. I feel we've stumbled upon a really great strategy for mixing color and trying to identify the base and match it exactly. Let's have a look at green. Here we have a very desaturated yellow-green. I'm going to start off with my aerolite lemon and a bit of burnt umber. Mix a little bit of cobalt teal into this and a bit of titanium white and see how we go. And already it's a little bit too dark and a little too brown. So I increase the saturation with cadmium yellow deep and more aerolite lemon, and then gradually we get closer and closer. And the same applies again. With this mid-tone, I'm just going to add a little bit more titanium white, check my saturation, and we've matched it nearly exactly. Finally, I'm going to check my saturation, add a little bit more titanium white, and we have matched the brightest tone again. So what have we talked about here? I've taken my secondary colors being orange, green, and purple, and I've matched them with this essential palette. Now we could keep going and come up with a lot of different examples and run more tests, and I think with more time, I'd be able to demonstrate even more ways that we could match different colors. But it's a great little exercise, something for you to have a try, and just learn at what a limited palette can do. You can mix an extraordinary range of color with that. Now, if you want to get your hands on some of these incredible Langridge handmade artist colors, then all you have to do is check out the links in the description below. For my subscribers, there's going to be a promo code if you're ordering internationally. You're going to be going through St. Luke's Art based in Melbourne. They'll ship to you anywhere in the world. Just make sure you request Andrew Tischler's Essential Palette. However, if you're within the United States, where you're going to be going is Soho Art Materials. They're based in New York City, and they'll ship to you anywhere inside the United States. That link is in the description below. I want to thank you for watching. If you like what you saw, make sure you hit that like button. If you want to come back for more, make sure you're subscribed. And as always, you can catch me on Instagram and Facebook. But also, guys, make sure you're subscribed through my website at www.andrewtischler.com. There's loads of extras and some bonus content for my subscribers. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again next time.